Good Monday morning. It is Monday, the 29th day of a great month of August 2022. Another edition of Mental Health Monday coming your way this morning, live and in studio in Noblesville, Indiana, broadcasting around the world. Sorry, I just got a little hyped up there, Kristen, but I do love that we reach a global audience with this awesome show. It's great to have everyone joining us this morning. I'm Mayor Chris Jensen of Noblesville, joined yet again by my partner in crime and my partner in mental wellness, Kristen Boyce, the owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. I am so excited to be here. I look forward to this every couple of weeks.
I did too. I was just talking to Julie Jensen this morning. She was asking if we had a show today. I said yes. And actually, we were discussing 2 weeks ago where we had our good friend Maggie Owens on, really diving into a pretty thick topic around suicide and youth suicide. And I was so grateful for that show because I felt like we were able to really pass along some great information on a very difficult subject. But that's what you and I have talked about. We are committed to doing. We're going to lean into tough conversations because if they can help someone, that's what we're here to do.
Absolutely. And here we are.
Here we are again. So we're going to talk a little bit about a variety of things today on the show. We're going to talk about blame. We're going to talk about different myths. I love a good myth show, by the way. Those are a ton of fun. But before we do that, a few ground rules for today. If you have any questions during the show, make sure you chime in, or if you just want to say hi. We know we have some frequent guests that like to do that. Feel free to share your thoughts or ask any questions. If I don't know the answer or Kristen doesn't know the answer, we'll go do some research for you and get back to you. It's one of my favorite things to do is follow up and get some information in people's hands. So feel free to leave that in the chat today. As we get going here, no questions or comments are off limits. So let us know what's on your mind. But before we do that, let's breathe a little bit. Let's do some square breathing, which is how we always start the show off. Kristen, take it away.
So this is a strategy to do every single day for the rest of your life. And sometimes we forget to breathe. We think, I am breathing, but we're not really taking a deep belly breath. So the invitation for you today is to release all the tension and tightness in your body. Maybe you're feeling stress, overwhelmed, anxious about something. Maybe you're really worried. So this is the time to kind of reset your nervous system. We start with putting our feet on the floor, or if you're standing, kind of pressing into your feet. We're going to inhale through our nose. We're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, and slowly release, exhale out our mouth like you're cooling a cookie or you're blowing out candles for 8. And we want to get the full benefit of that breath and breathe all the way through. So if you can, when you do your inhale, if you can kind of pull your belly to your spine, you'll get the biggest breath and you'll get the maximum benefit. So let's practice together. We'll do 2 breaths, feet on the floor, deep inhale through your nose, belly to the spine, and release. I can already feel the tension out of my shoulders kind of starting to release itself. So let's do one more. Inhale through your nose, hold, and release. And sometimes a good sigh on that exhale is also very helpful. So you can mix it up. You can do the deep breath, releasing just through like you're blowing out the candles, or you can do a sigh, a deep sigh. If no one else is around, you're in your car, maybe you're at home by yourself. That's also very, very helpful. So if you model this now, your children or grandchildren start to learn the breathing helps you regulate yourself, helps you get calm.
I was just going to comment about that, how important it is to start this conversation at a young age. I have small kids. Kristen, you have medium-aged kids, and teens, and how important it is to start that as a child and model that, because I think it's a great way to help regulate. So hugely important. Now, can you talk real quick about the breath before we move on? We're gonna start with some. First off, if you're looking forward to the next topic, we're gonna talk about how blame blocks your healing. So if that piques your interest, hang on. We're gonna get to that in just a minute about the blame game. But really, the breath is both mentally and physically beneficial. Can you because to me, if I'm John Q. Public, I feel a sense of clearing and relaxation. I also view it as kind kind of mentally blowing out any negative thoughts, anything that's bothering me in the body. And then physically, as you said, the relaxation, the calmingness. Can you kind of touch maybe on both of those topics there?
Yeah, so it's important we understand how the brain and the body are connected. We have what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is kind of bringing you back to peace. Think of para as peace. And the sympathetic nervous system is more activating. So it's going to be your amygdala where you hold all your emotions. And we now know there's a great book by Dr. Basil van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score. Why is that important? Because we found through research that emotions and trauma are held in the body. They're held in the nervous system. So if you're feeling stressed, and this is a classic example, you're in the car, you're in traffic, you're running late. What does your body start doing? We start tensing up. And I'm starting to get angry at the driver in front of me, or I'm starting to get dysregulated because I can feel it in my body. My breath is tight, my chest is tight, my stomach is getting knotty, and my back is tensing up, my shoulders. So I'm holding that stress inside my body. And the breath, what that does, it helps us access the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which is what brings you back to peace. I always like to think of it that way to cue the brain. And if we're not aware of what our nervous system is doing, we're going to have a hard time regulating ourselves. So the breath is the key instrument that helps you come back to center and helps you come back to calm. That's why it's so important we can connect the breath and the body to really help us feel better at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's what we want. We want to feel better.
Yep. I love that. I love your example about traffic and congestion, because I'm willing to admit that there are a few traffic cones around Noblesville right now, a little bit of construction. So if you get a little tense and upset about the city leaders who are placing them there, I get it. But here's a chance for you to breathe through it and work through it. So great example of that, because it's very timely around the city and probably around many communities across the world. So love that. Thank you for talking a little bit about the breath. It's one of my favorite parts of the show because it seems so simple, but actually pretty rooted in science and feeling and emotions there. So let's dive into our first topic today, which is going to be how blame blocks your healing. Now, you may hear that and, trying to kind of dissect that statement. But to me, that's a pretty obvious issue that some folks deal with, myself included, how we react to a situation, how we try to come through a maybe traumatic experience. There is blame always rooted in that. It could be blame focused on yourself. It could be blame focused on other people. But I imagine you're going to kind of work us through a little bit how to remove that blame in order to properly heal.
Yeah, and that's kind of an automatic response. Our thoughts are so automatic. We call it like ants. It's automatic negative responses, right? We're kind of thoughts. We always are thinking. And so the first thing is to start being aware of, what am I thinking? What are the thoughts I'm having? And they're pretty automatic. So let's take the traffic, for example. People want to blame you. People want to blame the leaders. People want to blame construction people. We want to blame because we're like, whose fault is it?
It's not my fault.
Whose fault is this? Right? I'm powerless over this. And look, I am so mad about all this. And what we're doing is what happens when we're in our car, we're mad. Yep. I'm getting worked up now. So my nervous system is getting worked up rather than me going, I'm going to accept the as is in this moment. There's construction. And the goal of the construction is to actually, at the end of the day, help us to create more flow so we don't have as much traffic. But I'm not thinking of that. I'm thinking of my temporary inconvenience. I'm thinking I'm going to be late. I'm thinking about all the ways that this is impacting me in this moment. So the first thing we have to do is recognize what blame is doing is taking us away from feeling better. How is it taking us away? I'm not taking care of my nervous system. I'm not processing how I'm feeling. I'm not tending to my nervous system. I'm just thinking about all the ways that I'm mad about this and how it's inconveniencing me. Rather than if I say, okay, let me take a deep breath. Let me breathe through this. We have traffic because it's a temporary pain point because we don't like to be inconvenienced, we want to press a button and have it Prime to us in 24 hours or go
Mhm.
through a drive-through, and I can say, you know what, this is gonna, I first of all I have to come back to my breath and be aware that I'm dysregulated. Second thing I have to do is go, oh, I'm blaming, and this isn't really helping me right now. What I can do is accept the moment as it is and learn to calm myself down. How do we do that? I'm going to actually talk to myself out loud. So I'm going to say, it's okay. Eventually, we're going to, the flow of the traffic, this is to help me, get to work faster, whatever, however you want to frame that. Let me take a couple deep breaths. Let me put my music on. Let me put my podcast on. It's all right. Maybe I need to leave a little sooner. Now my body is starting to go, okay, I feel safe again. I feel okay again. When we start blaming, we're taking away from us moving towards healing. And sometimes, not in this example, but sometimes I might have shame, meaning I feel bad about myself. I feel not good enough. I feel defective. I feel unlovable. I feel like there's something wrong with me. And blame can kind of cover up my shame.
Mm.
So if I'm focused on what other people have done or haven't done, or then I'm not really focused on my healing of the pain or my emotional, shame that's going on. I am focused on the other person, which is taking me away from what I can tend to. I can't control the other person. I can tend to the pain that has caused me, process it, meaning I can name it, I can acknowledge it. I can see where it is in my body. I can start releasing it. I can start releasing the grief around it, crying. I can start writing out how I feel. I can start empowering myself by processing it. But if I sit here and blame, I really don't move towards healing. I actually stay stuck.
I was going to comment. I love the traffic analogy, but I was going to kind of go deeper a little bit too when it comes to blame in situations. Probably, blame in regards to our personal relationships. Maybe there was a traumatic situation that happened between you and a spouse, or so there's deeper levels there besides just blaming yourself. Can you maybe touch a little bit, maybe on a deeper level, about how blame affects our personal relationships and healing within those?
Yeah, so there's many layers to this. Some people have truly been victimized, right? They've been abused, they've been sexually assaulted, they have been mentally or emotionally abused in some way. And that is, as a child, that is not your fault. That is not your fault. And you need to hear that. That is not your fault. So we're not talking about that because we want accountability. We want justice served. And oftentimes it doesn't happen. The person doesn't own what they did. They don't take accountability. Rare cases they might, but typically they're not owning what they did. They're not taking accountability. And so we are thirsty for people to acknowledge our pain, see how they've hurt us. We want them to own it. And at the end of the day, we are going to be barking down the wrong tree because a lot of people do not want to take ownership for what they've done. They want to pass the buck. They want to have excuses. They typically will, maybe gaslight you. Which makes you feel more stuck in your pain, rather, because people can heal without an apology. This is the truth, because I've walked so many people through it the 20 years I've been doing this. You can find healing without someone taking ownership for what they did, even though we want that so desperately. And what I want to say about blame is when we get stuck in the blame game in relationships. So let's take this to more practical levels of day-to-day life. Let's say you're in a romantic relationship and you want your partner to own what they did. You've got to start with owning your part. Don't
Mhm.
over own what's not yours, but take a look first at, okay, how did I contribute? Because most of the time we are convinced that it is the other person who did everything. And we think we're right. I'm like, well, look what you've done. What I recommend people do is take a deep breath. Look at your part in the dance. Is there something, maybe you got dysregulated? Maybe you are critical of the person rather than getting curious. I always say, let's get curious rather than critical. Did you come at the person with accusations? Or maybe you have a story about what you're convinced is true, but never really checked it. And so you're functioning from the story rather than functioning from the truth. And so when we jump to blame, we are out of curiosity and into the story, and we lose the ability to really seek the truth of the real reality of the situation. So I always say, one, look at your own contribution, own that, process the emotions. I'm all about the emotional processing. Process the emotions of what you might be feeling. And if you are uncomfortable with the feelings that you're feeling, people want to move to denial, blame, because it's too much for them to feel that pain. It's too much for them to feel that grief and loss. And so we want to be stuck in the blame rather than tending to our emotions, healing them, processing them, and then moving through them.
So really this idea around blame is more about looking inward and versus trying to project or change someone else's viewpoint of something, which is really kind of something we talk a lot about on this show, and around mental health is, yes, we may have thoughts about how we feel someone else should feel, shoulda, woulda, coulda, but really it's an inward examination to allow you to heal moving forward.
Yes, and you're going to feel the wanting to defend yourself and protect yourself so strongly, and blaming, coming at it with blame, like you always, you never. I recommend do not start a sentence with you, or you always and never,
Mhm.
or I love you, but, we've talked about these kind of key words that can be activating for people and really take us away from connection. So blame can come at you with accusations, you always, you never, rather than you calming yourself down first, exploring what you feel, and then having a conversation and bringing it to the light. We really want people to hear us, acknowledge what we're saying, validate it, empathize with us, and hardly anyone has these tools. That's why I'm so passionate about doing
Mhm.
this and helping people have these tools. But the blame game gets us on a dead end road at the end of the day.
I think Joe actually put it well in the comments. Blame and 25 cents will get you a cup of coffee, maybe. So love that. That's perfect. And I think we can end the blame conversation on that and then pivot if you're okay. Kind of moving on to our next topic, which was going to be the five myths of healing, which goes a lot of really, this is all connected, right? It's all one big conversation here on healing, whether it be because of, healing through that blame or healing for other reasons. But five myths around this, which I love. Like I said, I love a good myth show. So let's fire away down this path.
I love these myths because they're
Yeah.
so important. So people come into therapy or they enter on this healing journey and they think that there's going to be an end destination. And I'm like, well, that's a myth. There is
Mhm.
no end destination. So they think with grief or any kind of healing that there's going to be a timeline associated with it. And there's not. That's the truth. So the myth is I'm going to heal in 3 sessions or I'm going to heal a year from now. Yes, there might be some definite healing that takes place, but it's not on a timeline. There is no finish line for healing. So that's myth number 1.
Can I pause that real quick? Because I had a question about this, and because I think that's almost a myth that people associate with counseling, for example, that they're going to go into your point, and whether it's healing or processing anxiety or whatever the issue that led you to that conversation around mental health. I think they're looking for, okay, 6 weeks in, and I should be cured and ready to move forward. I think that's a myth because I think some people look for that instant gratification and realize that it really is a lifelong conversation of how to manage that. It will never go away. Am I
Yeah.
right on that?
We can heal certain traumas, so to speak.
Sure.
Emotionally, emotions never go away.
Mhm.
So this is myth number 2 that I
Yeah,
will.
I teed this up for you perfectly.
You did. It was a nice
Yeah.
segue.
Yeah.
I will feel better and never feel like I regress or take steps backward once I enter this healing journey. Because the people will come in and they're like, I thought I was over this. I thought I was over that breakup, or I thought I was over that death, or I thought I was over that person. And then a song came on, and now I'm right back in it. Or I thought I would never yell at my kids again. And I worked so hard on this. I've been doing the breathing and I've been doing the self-regulating. And they said this one thing to me, and I just lost my marbles. And I shouldn't be like that because I've been doing my work. And the truth is, you're a human being. And there are going to be situations where it's going to activate you again unexpectedly. And you feel like you've gone backwards. This is what I hear. I've regressed. I've gone backwards, as rather than that's part of the healing journey. It's 10 steps back, 20 steps forward. That's just what it looks like as you're going through the hard and processing the emotions and doing the work.
I love that because again, I think the key here is that when you do regress or go backwards, is that you have tools then to move yourself forward. Correct.
Exactly. And then you
Yep.
can recognize, oh, you can be gentle with yourself. Okay, this is part of the journey. This is normal, and
Which
there's
before you wouldn't even be able to identify that.
exactly. You
Yeah.
have the awareness, which
Yep.
leads me to the next myth, which I love. See, these all come together.
Oprah up here. This is
Um,
great.
I won't ever want to give up on the process. And the truth is, I'll have couples come in and they're like, "Yeah, I didn't want to come today." I'm like, "Absolutely. Yeah, I get that." Or people are on the healing journey and they're like, "Yeah, I'm done. Can I go back to being unconscious? Can I go back to being asleep? Can I go back to not having to deal with these emotions?" You are going to have times where you're going to want to give up. That's part of the journey, and nobody talks about that because we think I'm on the journey, I'm doing the work, and we want to give up on so many things. Like people that want to, they're like, I'm going to commit to my New Year's resolution and I'm going to work out, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. every day and I'm going to, and then they feel like giving up. I'm like, yeah, that's okay.
Mhm.
That's part of the journey of self-discovery. Everything is an invitation for us to go, what is the invitation for me to be looking at here? What is the deeper wound that might be getting activated right now? Everything is for our healing and growth and expansion. And when we know that, we can go, okay, we can be a little gentler with ourselves. We can nurture ourselves through it. We might explore what's going on that caused us to want to kind of just stop everything and quit, or we want to give up on ourselves. Or, it's like when when we're really working on healing and we're like, okay, I'm giving up watching crime shows. Let's just take this for example. A client will they know they're getting activated by this crime show, but they really like it. It's the psychology of it. And we'll say, okay, let's just try giving up one of the crime shows and check in and see how you feel. And lo and behold, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not having my nightmares. My nervous system feels better. I'm less anxious. And then the next week, they're like, oh, I really want to see the show. And so they have what we call just kind of like a blip on the radar, right? They go back and they watch it. Well, they needed that to really see the difference in terms of how they felt
Mhm.
watching the show and not watching the show. So when we can be gentler with ourselves and go, okay, I guess I needed that to really understand how it was impacting me and give ourselves some compassion, that can
Mhm.
be life changing.
Mhm. And I think that can be, there's a lot of parallels in that with people who are, might be battling addictions, for example, or other challenges where you think you have worked yourself through and healed yourself, and then instantly you go down this rabbit hole and your life falls apart quickly again, and it's that quick check. That's an extreme example, but again, I think it's to your point, being able to compare and contrast is kind of what helps you pinpoint what has made a situation better.
Yes.
Yeah.
And which leads us to number 4. Okay, number 4 is a biggie. That's
All right.
just be a little disruptive for folks. I just want to put it out there that if I do this growth work, my relationships will get better.
Mm,
No.
mm.
Sometimes the relationships end. Sometimes the relationships get rockier before they're even going to get better. And sometimes they don't get better because you're getting healthy and someone might be threatened by that. Someone might not be able to handle that. Someone might not tolerate that. So the more you start setting boundaries, the more you're clear and communicative, the better you're feeling about yourself. Thank you. You're giving us the honking high
Yeah,
five on
right,
this.
yeah. That was an ambulance going by serving our citizens here every single day. This is
Thank you.
live and in person, people, right
Yes.
here.
So the more that we can be realistic that sometimes it doesn't improve in relationships, but it doesn't mean that the work isn't worth it because you feel better. You're healthier. You're a healthier parent. You're a healthier partner. You feel healthier inside about yourself. And your mental health has made a significant difference in changing generational patterns and trauma.
And doesn't you becoming a healthier person sometimes cause you to view relationships differently?
Completely.
Hmm.
And you can, I mean, it really changes it's like you have glasses with a little bit of, like, you can't quite see your
Yeah.
prescription. Have you ever had that where your prescription,
Mhm.
you're like, my prescription's changing and I can't quite see clearly? When you do this work, it's like you got a new prescription. All of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I see so much clearer.
Mhm.
I can see better. I have better insight. I feel more self aware. I feel more empowered to speak my truth with love and grace. That is so transformative and it changes a whole system.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's okay when you see things more clearly. You may recognize as a healthy person that that relationship, whatever it may be, may not be a good relationship.
It may be one that it's time to release
Yeah.
and let go of. And that's part of the healing journey is sometimes or reframing what a relationship really is and the
Yep.
reality because you've been living in a denial or maybe even a fantasy about what you hope the relationship could be if that person would just see the light and do their work. Well, if they don't want to, they're not going to.
Yeah.
And this is a harsh reality when
Yeah.
people come into this work. How are we doing on time?
We're good. We're ready for that fifth
We
myth.
got one more. Okay.
And, we about landed this plane here today. This is great.
Okay. Here's the last one. The healing journey is easy and should just flow. Okay, that is the that is the hard knock, not true.
Mm.
So the healing journey doesn't just flow and is easy. It's going to push things inside you that you have tried to numb, move away from, mask that have kept you stuck. So it's going to press against those pieces and parts that you are uncomfortable with. And then you learn how to sit in discomfort. So here's one thing I'm going to say about this. We learn to speak, we learn to be less conflict avoidant. And so when we do that, we are now stepping into the discomfort of someone else's response to us and tolerate like, oh, they're getting upset. They're not, being abusive, but they're upset by what you said. They're sad. They're angry. And I can go, that's okay. You can have your feelings about that. We want everybody to be kumbaya with what we say. We want them to go, oh yes, I totally understand. And that doesn't happen when we can go, oh, it's okay for them to be sad about what I said. I can't manage their feelings. I didn't say anything hurtful or mean. I said how I felt.
And
And
especially as somebody who is a words of affirmation love language person, that's very difficult.
very difficult, isn't it? You
Very
want so badly for things to be harmonious.
difficult.
We want so badly for that acknowledgement and that validation of what we said is okay, and you're not mad at me. You're not upset with me. And the truth is, it's not reality.
It's not life.
It's you can't manage other people's emotions. And when you can sit in that discomfort and breathe through it, you're more empowered to communicate with your adult self and not avoid hard conversations. And that
Yep.
takes up to our time, doesn't it?
That's perfect. I love that, and I think the theme here is that again, this is really focused on you, the person, and you focusing on yourself and tools that you need to heal, to focus on blame and how that affects relationships going forward. So incredible lessons here and wonderful myths on an awesome topic. So thank you, Kristen Boyce. Final thing we'll end with: if someone's in crisis right now, if they've heard this show and they need help immediately, where do they go?
988. We love
988.
this number. Text or call 988. Please do not hesitate. It's there for you. It's a national number, and there's trained clinicians on the other end of the line. So please do not hesitate to reach out or text 988. That is the number to save, to know, to communicate to your children, to communicate to your friends, your neighbors. Know that number 988, like 911, it's 988 for mental wellness.
Yep. And if you're with somebody who maybe you aren't the person maybe in crisis, but you're with somebody, can they,
Yes.
you can call that number, correct? Or text that number.
Call that number. You can call, you don't have to walk through this alone. You
Yep.
can get support. That's what we're trying to build as a community of support around us to end the stigma around the conversation around mental and emotional wellness and health. So we can destigmatize it. We can ask for help without a lot of shame and fear. We can normalize this conversation, and we're going to change the generations, at least for our children, our grandchildren. That's what we want. We
Absolutely.
want our health to feel healthier, to feel better about ourselves and each other.
I love it. Well, Kristen Boyce, once again, owner of Pathways to Healing here in Noblesville. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll be back in another 2 weeks with another edition of Mental Health Monday. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you.